All right, the next recipe we're going to make together is hummus. And I have made this several times and taken it to various events, and it is always a big hit. So I highly recommend it, and I will also say it is naturally gluten-free, and that does not mean that it is not naturally delicious. You can serve it with a number of things, but I love carrots with hummus and cucumbers with hummus.
Okay, so when we were buying the supplies for this, I looked everywhere for chickpeas because that's what the recipe says in the book.
Yes.
What are chickpeas?
Chickpeas,
garbanzo beans,
also AKA garbanzo beans, and that is often how they are labeled in the grocery store. And of course, that's the key ingredient to hummus. So
yes.
And the other thing that's kind of tricky from an ingredient standpoint is it calls for tahini paste. And what is tahini paste?
Lots of sesame seeds.
Sesame seeds that are turned into a paste,
yes.
essentially. And that can also be a little challenging to find in the grocery store, but we discovered it in the international aisle in the Indian section.
And the thing that threw me off was when I heard paste, I assumed something out of a tube. It's actually out of a jar.
It's in a jar.
So that was an important one to find.
Yes. So. Okay. Yep. So let's get started. We're actually going to we're going to half the recipe because we have a moderate sized food processor, which is probably what you'll have at home. I've made the full recipe before, and it sort of oozes out of the food processor. So I would recommend having it.
You need a Mr. Chompers.
Well, I don't have a Mr. Chompers. So if you have a Mr. Chompers, you're good to go. But in the meantime, we're going to tell you the ingredients for the full recipe. So it calls for 3 19-ounce jars of chickpeas. So
drained and rinsed.
Yes, drained and rinsed. We're going to add these first. You just pour them right into the food processor.
Clear that away.
Yeah. Then we're going to need 1.5 cups of water.
Water.
We have that ready? Okay, here we go. Next, we're going to do 1 cup of the tahini paste. So I've got the tahini paste here. Maybe you can see the texture a little bit on the video.
It's a thick paste for sure.
Yeah.
Take that for you.
There you go. Half of a cup of an olive oil. I think we need to measure that out.
And that's your quarter.
There's
Make
a
sure right there since we're having it.
Okay, that's right.
I can pour if you want.
Here, I'll get it. I'm going to do it over this in case I have any spillage.
The important thing is when we have to clean later, we have sangria to clean with.
Exactly. Sangria makes everything better, especially cleaning.
I'm going to set this down because you actually don't put the olive oil in until the end while you're processing.
Okay.
You drizzle it in the top. But let's see. We needed
kosher salt.
Lemon juice. Let's do the lemon juice. That goes in. After the tahini, then we're going to need salt and garlic.
How much salt?
We need a tablespoon of kosher salt. And then we're going to need, we're going to be using 3 cloves. It calls for 6, but of course we're having the recipe. So, and the nice thing about this recipe is you can put the cloves in whole because the food processor is going to do the hard part for us. And then cumin and chili powder.
How much?
We need, the full recipe calls for a teaspoon of black pepper, so you're going to do half.
Okay.
Okay, and then we're going to do, the recipe calls for a half teaspoon of chili powder, so we're going to do a 1/4 teaspoon.
Okay. See, almost dumped too much in there.
That would have been really spicy.
When you were making this before, did you find that it was pretty easy to, if you wanted to bump up the flavor signature, add a little more of this?
If you want to add a little heat or you wanted a little more lemony, yeah, absolutely.
And then cumin, I'm ready to go.
Okay, the recipe says 2 teaspoons, so we're doing
1 teaspoon.
1 teaspoon.
Okay.
And then, so then we are going to get the food processor going. Here, I'll let you put the lid on. It's yours.
It does require an advanced degree sometimes.
Most food processors do.
There used to be a lot easier. I'm not sure why. This will be the part that we edit out later.
It won't turn on.
Seriously. Hate this thing.
Mine's the same way.
There
we go. See, you got to be smarter than the food processor.
All right, so we're going to turn on the food processor, and while it's running, we're going to drizzle in the olive oil. Check it. You know, the other thing that I think is really fun about making your own hummus versus buying it in the store is you can adjust the texture. And I think I like my hummus to have a little texture. And oftentimes when you buy it in the store, it's super smooth. Obviously, if you want it super smooth, you just keep on blending it.
So how do you like the consistency there?
Yeah, it looks really good to me. I just like the chickpeas have a little bit of a texture to them, and you really get to enjoy that when you make it yourself.
So maybe if you were making this, you might buy one extra can of chickpeas so that if you found it to be too thin, you didn't have to go back to the store.
Yep, the chickpeas will be the thickening agent in the hummus. So I have found when I've made this, it's thinner than what I would buy in a tub at the grocery store. So if you wanted a thicker version, you could add more chickpeas.
Okay, so go ahead and that does make quite a lot too.
That's a half a batch.
And that's half a batch, yeah.
There we go. So
but it's so delicious and you know what? It keeps well in the refrigerator for several days. So if you keep it in an airtight container.
Now I'm not a hummus expert. I've seen some people who kind of to throw a little bump up the wow factor. They'll sprinkle something on top or put some. Any suggestions of things?
I think you could sprinkle paprika on the top. That'd be pretty.
And you can drizzle the top with some more olive oil. Pine nuts you can do. You can even do some different herbs.
Okay.
Yep. You could do chopped roasted red peppers on the top as a garnish. That'd be pretty.
And some parsley.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.